You're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. On the backdrop of that story that has been done by Rita Tinina, let's see if we can clear the air just a little bit for you to understand what's going on. In studio, we have Education Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi to clear the air and help us understand what is going on. Waziri, thank you for joining us on KTN Prime. And we're focusing on the basic education regulations. What powers do they give you?
Thank you, Linda. May I try to clarify one thing?
Yes.
First of all, the rules and the regulations which were gazetted on the 8th of this month were born out of extensive consultations with key stakeholders as per the law. KUPPET and KNUT participated in the consultations. And to be specific, we had 4 meetings, and one of those meetings I chaired. KUPPET and NAT were represented. By and large, we agreed on all those clauses. The only contentious matter was the definition of who is the end of an institution. Finally, the stakeholders, through a consensus, defined the end of an institution as follows: a teacher, a head teacher, a principal of a basic education institution, note, appointed by TSC, not the minister, and exercising delegated authority of the minister as the accounting officer.
Okay.
I hope that is very clear. Therefore, indeed, I'm not taking any powers at all. If you read section 5 or number 5 of these rules, it is also very clear. The principals or head teachers shall be appointed by TSC, which is a constitutional commission. Therefore, there is no violation at all of the Constitution. And what it goes on to say is that if it is established, not the word established, there is impropriety by the head teacher or the principal leader of the institution,
the accounting officer,
then what I'm supposed to do is to withdraw the agency or the delegated authority of that principal as the accounting officer, report this matter to TSC, which will appoint another teacher and initiate the process of disciplining the teacher who is an employee of Teachers Service Commission.
Okay, let me ask a question. So assuming there's a report of a misappropriation, misimpropriety,
yes,
why can this case go directly to TSC?
It cannot go directly because if you look at section 53 of the Education Act, it is very clear. The overall responsibility of management of basic education institutions is vested in the minister. If you look at number 2 of that section, 53.2, it says the minister can delegate its authority of management of institutions to an individual, to a body, to an institution, to an agency, which I've done. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a direct question. Article 237, Teacher Service Commission, of course, this is in the Constitution. It mandates the TSC to recruit, deploy, remunerate, promote, and discipline all registered teachers in public schools. Waziri, what you're telling me is the regulation does not go against the Constitution
that is how
of
it is.
Kenya.
And indeed, if I want to emphasize, Linda, TSC was not created as an independent commission to create difficulties in the provision of quality education services in the country. If anything, is complementary. If you look at the TSC Act itself, TSC is supposed to advise the minister. Now, when you say it is supposed to advise the minister, what does that mean? It means we must work together in the interest of the children of this country. The moment we disagree, the moment we fight, it's like two bulls fighting. And the grass is the children of Kenya, which in my view is not correct. So we must work together, and the deed must be seen to be working together, which we are doing.
Both NAT and Kupetas have given you 7 days in which they expect you to revoke this regulation. Are there chances that probably you could revoke this and engage them in new set of negotiations?
Let me say this, Linda. It is in our constitution. As per our constitution, anybody has a right to an opinion. So Kupet, Kaimenyi, and any other Kenyan has a right to a certain opinion. The biggest question is, are they right or wrong? And for me, if you ask me, again, my opinion, I don't think they are right. Because Linda, as I've already said, we met 4 times with these people. They were there.
So basically the allegation that they're making that they were not consulted is not true.
It's not true. Absolutely. They were consulted. And as I've said severally, if you differ with other stakeholders and you're in the minority, common sense demands that let the majority carry the day, because they are likely to be correct, they are likely to be true. It cannot be the case that you all agree 100%, Linda. You know that's not possible. But as long as the majority, as long as there's consensus on the direction we should take in the governance structures of our country, so be it.
Waziri, they may be in the minority, but you do realize they have indicated that if you do not revoke this, then they will call for an industrial action.
And this is exactly what I'm trying to tell you, Linda. Our constitution provision is very clear. You can picket, you can go on strike. There's nothing wrong with that. But I want to advise them, because I cannot stop them from going on strike. These are my brothers and sisters. I want to advise them this. Since we have consulted as per the law, and the majority of stakeholders are in consensus, particularly the clergy, if you go, especially the Catholic Church, even the Muslim community, since they're in concurrence with what you are doing, including the private sector, it is in the interest of this country, of industrial peace, not to go on strike.
Okay, Waziri, thank you for sharing your opinion on this, but stay with me because I understand on the line we have Wilson Sosion, NAT Secretary General. Bwana Sosion, thank you for calling in. You've listened in to what the Waziri had to say. What are your thoughts on some of the things he has had to say here? Because he says NAT and Kupet were consulted before this regulation was gazetted.
Indeed, the process was mishandled, and this the minister should admit. When he brought a bunch of county directors to shout at us and to force a process, then that is not consultation. Even if consultation was substantive and done as the minister is alleging, the regulation should have gone through a further due process of the CIC. We have raised this matter. We disagreed. And Teacher Service Commission took a strong position, similar position, because of violation of the Constitution. And we are under duty to protect the Constitution. And we agreed in those meetings that we were going to have further discussions with the Ministry of Education on several clauses, not just one. And indeed, we did write to CIC. And because this is a major constitutional matter, and CIC is vested with that responsibility. And CIC wrote back and cautioned and copied the Cabinet Secretary that it would be unconstitutional for him to proceed and gazette the same unless the same regulations were taken through the Kenya Law Reform Commission and also the CIC, which the minister has done it without consideration of those other critical institutions. What the minister is doing is to bring confusion one after the other. And where we are at the moment, we no longer have interest in Kaimenyi because the stakeholders to him is some few individuals in the civil society and some people masquerading as parents. Kaimenyi should open up and work with everyone. That is
Mr.
the fundamental
Sosion,
fact. And, yes.
Mr. Sosion, hold on. Let me see if I'm getting what you're trying to say. You're saying these regulations were gazetted before there was consensus from all stakeholders.
Exactly. Exactly. The regulation should have gone through CIC, it should have gone through the law reform, it should have even been notified to the Education Committee of Parliament. And this, the Cabinet Secretary did not do it. And therefore, there is no consensus Absolutely.
Okay, Sosion, please clarify something for me, because I'm speaking to Waziri and he says the basic education regulations do not give him the powers to sack primary or secondary school head teachers.
And that is what he wants to do exactly. He wants to limit the tenure of head teachers and principals to 5 years and 15 years. He wants to have the power to sack, to hire and fire. If you will read in details, it is actually the regulations is giving the cabinet secretary powers which are not donated to him, even in the basic education regulations itself. It originates from nowhere. So therefore, we are contesting what is genuinely right, and we have consulted extensively, both constitutional lawyers, the rights institution, and we think what the minister is doing is unconstitutional. And any government officer who really is trying to muscle the rights of citizens and work against the Constitution, then definitely that is a bad public office, and that is why we are not just calling for the degazettement of the same. We are calling for the sacking of the cabinet secretary. If it doesn't, there will be chaos in the sector.
Sosion, hold on. Sosion, just hold on. The Waziri is here in studio with me. Waziri, perhaps you'd want to respond to some of...
Yes, please. Again, I want to repeat what I've said. No amount of misleading the public by the union will open board. I get the impression that my brother Sosion has not read the rules and regulations at all. A few minutes ago, I talked about the Education Act, and I talked about Section 53, and I said our powers to delegate. That is not in dispute. I said the regulations define who is a head of an institution, and as per that definition, it's very clear that the appointing authority of principals is not the minister. I've also talked about, and I hope he was listening, if you look at number 5 of the rules and regulations, very clear again, the end of the institution is the principal, is the end of teacher, appointed by Teacher Service Commission. Okay. It is very clear. And I want to say that there is no confusion at all in the ministry. And when he gives the impression that the law, again, you look at the law, if you look at the Education Act, there is nowhere where it is written or specifically the minister shall consult so and so. It just says the minister shall draft or come up with the regulations in consultation with his key stakeholders. Mark, the word is key.
Key stakeholders.
To the best of my knowledge, some of the key stakeholders he's talking about, they are not necessarily key. He talked about CIC. He talked about the Law Reform Commission. There's nothing like that. And I can tell you, what we have done is that we have consulted the principal legal advisor of our national government.
The Attorney General.
Attorney General, who has given us the green light to proceed and gazette the rules.
Okay, Waziri.
Why is that done? Because he must make sure that we are not in violation of our constitution in any way. Thank you.
Waziri, thank you so much. Education Cabinet Secretary Joseph Kaimenyi shedding some light on basic education regulations. And of course on phone we had NAT Secretary General Wilson Sosion. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us to help us understand what the regulations are all about. Let's see how this pans out in the coming days.